Hello, Mahas Wetaful. You're here. Came straight over from Mike. That's awesome. So it was nice just watching Mike draw. I'm a big fan, and super cool to see his approach to the awesome photo we had today of Beer for President. Yeah, super cool trap reference. And we're going to have a different take on it now. It was awesome seeing the way Mike did all these quick sketches and overlap them and put them together. And I was also wondering today, I really enjoy quick sketches, and how can I bring some of that kind of brevity to a longer piece? Because sometimes we sit here together and have like an hour to draw, and at the end of it, it's like, oh, sometimes I really love like a 2-minute sketch. So my challenge for today is to take the kind of energy of a fast sketch and build upon it and try and make it into a really cool finished portrait. So it's lovely seeing you all coming in after just having been watching Mike. That was awesome. Karen, Wendy, Elgina, hi. Katie, Cheyenne, Dean, Diane, Rucha, hi. It's lovely to be here on this cold Inktober day in Germany. I this week have been working on some commission stuff that I've been a bit behind on because I've been doing a lot of Inktober and other things. So I need to catch up in the coming week with all of my Inktober drawings, but I've been checking everyone's awesome work on the Sktchy Art School and Instagram and on Sktchy. So it's really amazing to see what you've all been doing. And yeah, today, I don't know if Sam is maybe here already. We have a really cool reference image inspired by the prompt trap. And I saw a really wonderful piece done by Mark Sheff, like 4 years ago, which was inspired by this photo. And when I was thinking about the idea of trap, I just thought back to this and I totally love it. Yeah, Mark Sheff did a really cool version and he painted with gold and this like snake coils were going all around the neck. And if you're on Sktchy, check it out on Mark Sheff's account. Super cool. So I thought back to this image and I'm really excited to work from it today with you all. If anyone has any questions along the way, feel free to ask. And I will endeavour to address any questions you may have. I hope that Inktober is going well for everyone who's participating. It's great to see a lot of people getting into acorn ink, which is my favourite, and I've seen lots of people making their own acorn ink and all sorts of different inks. So that's totally warms my natural ink lover's heart to see people making their own inks. It's so cool. So I will now switch over to my workspace. Switch. Here we go. I have this acorn ink here. There's a lot of sediment down the bottom. This is not filtered, so it's like really thick and grainy, which I think may be interesting. As I'd like to fill in some black areas. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm going to just, so I don't get lost, I'm going to mark the kind of edge of frame here so I don't draw off of the page for you all. And I have one of my beloved elder pens here. This one is particularly beautiful. It has such a nice form in the wood here and a really nice broad edge calligraphy style for doing some fun line work. So I've seen a lot of people making their own pens, which also totally excites me. It's so nice to see people getting into it. And here's a reminder from Sktchy that there's a super cool offer at the moment. Buy one, get 80% off. why wouldn't you? It's amazing. There are so many cool classes. So get into that. That's super cool. BOGO 80, 80% off a second class. It's almost a second one free. So cool. Thank you, Sktchy, for your generosity and this awesome platform for sharing and creating together. Karen has been gathering acorns. Excellent. How many of you squirrels out there have been foraging for your own ink supplies? I'm sure there's a few. So I've got my reference over here. Maybe I'm going to open it in a different way so I can control the size. Sometimes I'll open my reference in Procreate instead of working straight from the Photos app, because it allows me to change things. And as I mentioned earlier, I like a lot of the sketchy, fast work that I do, and often it'll be at a smaller scale. So it's interesting to try and keep that quality and translate it to a bigger piece. But having the photo open in Procreate just allows me to have it however I like. Whereas the native Photos app kind of chooses for you what size you're looking at, unless you're zooming in. Cool. Diane's been foraging. I can make a video on blueberry ink. There's one in the Ink Naturally class. But I can also just talk about it because it's really easy, especially if you can get some frozen blueberries. You let them thaw and freeze them and thaw them and freeze them and thaw them. And as they thaw, the juice just comes out of the berries. It won't work if you use fresh berries. I tried to just squish fresh berries and it didn't work very well. But by freezing and thawing, the juice just flows and you can make your ink from it. So that's actually a really easy one. Thank you, Wendy, for answering that. Let's start drawing. So this is just such a amazing reference photo that we're so blessed to be able to work from. There are so many cool photos on Sktchy. When you're using ink, it's really helpful sometimes to touch the, you can give it a stir because there's a sediment at the bottom. It kind of, in this case, there is, and that'll mix it up. And if you touch it to the inside of the jar, it lets the kind of excess ink just drip down a bit. So let's start drawing. This nostril is just grabbing my attention. So I'm going to start here. And I really want to try and use this broad calligraphy edge. Do what I can. Just use it in a way appropriate for this tool, and it's really good for getting really thick and thin lines. I think it's a really wonderfully diverse drawing tool. I didn't mention, but my paper, I didn't show you, but I can mention it now. My paper is this Hahnemühle Aquarelle paper, which is a really heavyweight watercolor paper. So you can work pretty wet with it with fairly minimal buckling. There is a bit, but yeah, and so my approach to this drawing, I guess, is as usual, no preliminary drawing, just picking shapes and drawing. I've just caught here that I think maybe my nostril is a bit small, and just using the things as I draw them to give me a point of reference for the next shape to kind of jump off and spread out from there. Just reading. Yeah, freeze and thaw out and refreeze. that's a really interesting question about the acorn ink. I have not had it darken with age, but I have had it darken as my iron rusty magic potion stuff has aged. So when I started making acorn ink, it had a really lovely dark brown sepia color. And as you can see here, it's pretty much black. And I think that's because my iron mix is now like 4 years old, super dark. I think that's why it's become darker. So the longer anyone who started making their awesome iron mix for darkening their inks, you can just keep it going for years and years, and keep adding vinegar to it, and it will keep oxidizing, and you end up with some really nice rusty stuff to put into your ink. So yeah, that's something interesting that I noticed, the difference in color. And I presume it's because of the intensity of my iron concentration that I'm putting into it. Also, the more tannin you have, so working with oak galls is much more intense. But once it's on the paper, following up to that question, I haven't noticed it change. It hasn't faded, and it hasn't gotten darker. So just thinking, it's yeah, Katie, awesome. Anyone who's got frozen blueberries in their fridge may want to take them out right now and get them thawing, because it's a really lovely color to work on. That will change once it's on the paper. As it oxidizes and ages, the blueberry ink changes, but it's wonderful to just witness and watch the way it has a life of its own. I think it's really cool the way it fades and changes. All right, I mentioned that I wanted to kind of have the quality of a brief drawing, and I feel like I'm hanging out a bit too long, thinking a bit too much, maybe talking a bit much as well. But I just want to get back to that idea of doing a brief sketchy drawing and then working into that. So as I go, I'm already seeing kind of differences in the shapes, but you know, when you're working with a quick sketchy drawing, it's fine. Just keep drawing and play with that line quality. I think it's just such a fun way to get some interest in the kind of contrasting quality of lines. Oh yeah, Wendy, play around with lemon and baking soda. It's amazing. So iron is a modifier. I'm talking about iron for darkening the ink. And with lemon and baking soda, you can play around with the pH value and totally change the colors of your ink. It's like magic. It's so much fun. Okay, we can use the nose here. I think I've stretched out the bottom side of the face here, but using the nose just as a point of reference and the edge of the moustache to kind of see where is the snake wrapping around. And I don't know if Sam is here. I presume this is a pet. So the idea of trap, I'm sure in life it was a very loving embrace. But it's just such a cool image. Has anyone here had snakes wrapped around them? at university, I had a friend who had a pet python, and I just whenever I visit him, I loved just hanging out with the snake, and sometimes I just like go inside my shirt and wrap around and just explore, and it's so interesting spending time with this serpent. And so Sam works in fashion, and check out Sam's Instagram. It's if someone's here and can tag it for me, that would be great. Morph Fichte or something, and lives in Switzerland and is passionate about nature and animals. So this is a very lovely, passionate embrace, a passionate trap. Being raised in Australia, I'm not sure if it was just my mum or a general kind of thing, but there's quite a fear of snakes around, having some of the most poisonous snakes in the world, I guess. But it's nice to get a hug from a friendly python. Only in nightmares. Snake hugs. Okay, this is a cool question for the avocado ink. There are different avocado inks you can make. I've made 3 different ones. One is just by grating the seed, one and putting it into water. It doesn't even need any cooking. And then you get a kind of bright peachy orange ink. And for the darker, this awesome dark red avocado ink, you can chop up whole seeds, boil them, and add, while it's boiling, to add some baking soda to the mix, and that reacts in a way that makes it really nice and dark red. So you don't need to crush them, but chopping them up is useful. And the skin, you can make a separate ink with the skin, it will be a different color, but you need a lot of skins to make avocado skin ink. Thanks for asking. And how many would you need? You could make avocado just by grating it. You could use 1 seed and you'll get enough. If you're cooking it and want the darker ink, I go for 6 at least, and the more the better. And you can save them. If they're old, you can still use them. They're harder to chop up once they age and get a bit older. And for the skins, you need a lot. It's like the least abundant of those 3 options. But I would just say never throw out any avocado seeds or skins again. And then you can collect them, let them dry, and once you have, particularly for the skins, once you have a lot of them, then you can make a good batch of ink with them. Okay, this is a good question for storing inks in general. I get a lot of people asking about mould. Mould is a thing, and this is natural inks with a natural process of decay. If you put whole cloves or clove oil in your ink, that will prevent it from getting moldy. If you store it in sterilized jars, which you can do just by boiling it, boiling your ink jars before you store your ink in them. And if you're, and I guess with the blueberry ink, because you're working with a raw product, well, it's just like thawed and frozen, so it hasn't been boiled and sterilized. I'm not sure if it's frozen, I guess. I don't know, can someone else answer that for me? If something's been frozen, is it sterilized? Not really, is it? So it's different with, in that case, if you really want, and I encourage everyone to experiment with all of this stuff, just try different things out. But you could just let your blueberry ink simmer so that it's like sterilized, and then store it. It should last longer. And the clove oil works wonders because cloves prevent mold growth. So either clove oil or whole cloves. You could put like, I don't know, 5 or 6 whole cloves in an ink jar, or less, depending on the size of the jar. And if you do see mold growing on your ink, you can just remove it with a cotton bud or tissue or anything. Remove the mold because you're not going to consume it. It doesn't really matter. Just get rid of that, throw it away, and then put some more cloves in, and that should stop any further ink growth. This snake is so cool. There's just this really nice thickness and sense of weight to the snake. And there's this really gorgeous, thick shadow line on the bottom side, and I think that's here we can really use the broad edge of the pen. If you're not using a broad edge tool, then double up, thicken that. You can really get this wrapping, heavy sense of weight on the face. Looks so cool. I think my nose is a bit small, but that's all right, whatever. Yeah, you can also store your ink in the fridge, and that will help preserve it if you've got space. And you can freeze it and take it out, let it thaw, and use it when you need it. Oh, look, do the ink get moldy? Yeah, they do. These inks can get moldy, but the cloves will really help. Stina, nice to see you here. So freeze will only slow the molding process while it's frozen. Thank you. Yeah. Climate change. Thanks, Dina. That's an exciting, terrifying thing to think about. All those frozen, nasty things melting, being released into the world's oceans. It's good to be aware of these things, but also to, enjoy the moment of drawing something beautiful, even though ancient diseases and I don't know, other diseases, bacteria, things frozen in the polar ices which are melting. Those things getting thawed out. Yeah. Enjoy life. Draw. Create things of beauty. Spend time. I think, there's so much crazy stuff, so much overwhelming kind of doomy stuff going on. And I think the act of creating art and taking time to slow down and do something, which is essentially really for us, our own process of creation. I think that's definitely a beautiful part of drawing and making art. It's just that feeling the flow and concentration and that state that we enter into while we make such a, I think, beautiful and important thing to do. So I'm so honored to be able to be here and doing exactly that with all of you. And it really is a meditation. A bit less so when I'm talking all the time while I'm drawing, but it's still totally, an exercise in presence and paying attention and going with our intuition. It's just such a beautiful thing to do. And I think with the more kind of craziness that happens in the world, as I'm maturing, I see more and more value in the creation of art. And the more important I think it is to do, and the more important it is to connect with people and with ourselves. Yeah, so cool. Thanks all for being here and drawing, inking with me. Ah, Steph's here. Hi, cool. Ah, yeah. Don't ignore it. It's totally good to be aware of the horrible things that are going on, and I don't ignore them. But it's important as well, especially having kids. I've been through really doomy phases where I was pretty bleak, and I think I made some art to try and get through it, and a lot of political garbage that was happening. And I was getting so angry and so despairing. And now I feel like I'm still aware of these things and I'm not ignoring it. And I do what I can, like making my own art supplies and reducing waste, and spending a lot of time in nature. And I think, yeah, the thing of connecting and doing things together with people and realizing that we are together, creating together, creating in general. It's totally helpful and healing, I think. And in the face of the bleakness that a lot of these things suggest, I think knowing that we are together, we create together, that we can really powerfully change things together. So don't ignore all that. Frozen nasty stuff in the ice. Don't ignore the melting of the ice. But also, see the beauty and love each other and be kind. Just like this loving snake embrace. I didn't think that was an accusation, Stina, but it was a good impulse to talk about it. It's definitely something that has occupied me a lot over the past years. And Tim, that's cool. That even though you're not drawing, being together with us is one of the best parts of the week. That's so cool. It's great. It's great for me. I love it. Like the past week, I've been drawing, working on commissions that have been waiting for a while, but I haven't been kind of as much in the Inktober buzz as the first couple of weeks, because it was also important to work on these commissions. But I love about these live streams and about drawing together on Tuesday night that it's just, for me, it's been so cool, that chance to connect and draw together. And apart from all the things that I have to do, it's kind of the main thing that I really make time for in my weeks. So it's really lovely to have you here and share this time together. So this is fun. I love this contrast, the thick and thin line weight stuff. It's so cool. We're about halfway in, and I'm feeling pretty good with this. So I think I have managed in some way to keep some of that looseness, which I talked about in the beginning, that sometimes I really enjoy my quick drawings, and then when it stretches out to an hour, I lose some of that looseness that I really like. But I think this is moving in a good direction. I'm going to have a drink. Yes, Fergie. The question was answered. whether inks can become moldy. They can, and the easiest thing to do against it is to drop some whole cloves into your ink. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some swimming around in here. And whole cloves or clove oil will prevent mold growth wonderfully. So thank you for asking again. Yes, they can get moldy. And if they do, it's not a problem. You can just scrape off the mold and keep using the ink. That's fine. And thank you, Hilda, for answering. I love it when I see in the chat that you're answering each other's questions. It's so cool. Yeah, snake pattern. I'll keep going with that. It's going to be interesting now to see how we do the snake pattern without it kind of, we need to do it in such a way that it doesn't become a confusing, like, what's that thing on the face? But we've still got half an hour to figure out how we're going to do it. So let's just rejoice in these lovely dark shapes and see how things turn out. So there's a really fun scale by scale highlights here. I'm not going to be getting into that right now, I think. Leaving a bit of a highlight in the middle, so it's not like this solid black. Even though squinting down, it does look like solid black. I'd like to imply that highlight bit, so for now I'm just going to leave it. Mike was asking what people are interested to learn from him in future, and I'm going to have another Ink Naturally contribution coming up soon, and I've got a bunch of ideas, and I know I asked this a couple of weeks ago in a live stream, but what would people like to learn from me in class content? So I think it's really interesting. I'm definitely going to be doing charcoal ink, relevant to the time of the year in where I am in the Northern Hemisphere. In Germany, it's getting pretty cold, and charcoal ink is awesome. It has this wonderful glittery quality to it. But yeah, in terms of ink making, oh, hello, there's a notification. That's okay. I don't know if there've been many more of that and I didn't notice, but I'm just, yeah, nice to say hello. Hello, I like saying hello. Yeah, in terms of ink making, but also like portrait-wise, is there anything in particular people would like me to cover? Because in the first installment of Ink Naturally, week by week, I had a different topic, and there was just like so much to do: line quality, shadow, edges, storytelling, and there's just so many different things we can cover. And I feel like each one of those things, in and of itself, could be a. Oh, can you hear Holly? Just calling out, my almost 2-year-old calling out that she wants to be naked. Yeah, I just have so many ideas of what I would love to share with you, ink making wise, and on the kind of technical or creative side of things. So if you have ideas, feel free to alcohol-based inks, Dina. Yes, oh, it's something I need to do. And that's going to be part of the next thing in November, because I really want some fast-drying ink. Okay, cool, Polly. Always having to pre-draw in pencil. I'm wondering how to get past that. Um, Drawing a lot in ink helps, but it's something I can definitely take into mind as I kind of come up with my structure. Yeah, drawing a lot, going for it, embracing your mistakes, and that's why ink is such a good teacher. Um, and I totally know what you mean. Like I've done it so much and drawn so much in pencil, and kind of get to the stage of things being really undefined and reworking things all the time, and putting so much effort into the pencil and then painting over it. um, and yeah, going straight to ink, I think, is such a cool, helpful thing to do. So yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind. I do work in ink for some of my commissions, but I even work digitally for some of my commissions. Some of my illustration work, I think, would be pretty unrecognizable for most people that know my work from Instagram and Sktchy. I've done a lot of vector illustration stuff, and I've only just now noticed that the snake has, like, either Sam's glasses were up on the head already, or the snake has pushed the glasses up. That's so cool. I only noticed this now. I've known this image for at least 4 years, and now I'm just seeing that detail. That's fun. Yeah, so I do have commissions that I work in ink for, especially when it's portrait stuff. There we go, glasses. I love drawing glasses, and this little gift up in the top corner of this image is just a little bit of glasses for us to draw. Cool. All right, I'm going right off the top of my page with the hair. This has grown a lot. That's good because I have big paper, so it's really expanded. My drawing has felt the space available and really grown to fill it. All right, so those are the two things. How to get past the pre-drawing in pencil thing. Can dwell on that a bit. Alcohol-based ink, which is going to be so exciting. I can't wait to fill all of my fountain pens with fast-drying natural ink. I think it's going to be revolutionary. There are so many. It's funny. It's something I've wanted to do for so long and just haven't done yet. So it's going to be really fun to share that with you and make alcohol-based natural inks together. And I talk about it, and I don't know if Yuka is here, who's participating in the Inktober Portrait Challenge, but Yuka's he's just going for it, which is awesome, and I'll be going for it too. And I hope you'll all be making amazing natural alcohol-based inks soon. So for those who don't know why I'm talking about this or why Stina is asking about it, I would like to get into it. A lot of the natural inks, they can tend to be watery, and we can add binder to it and evaporate it further. Sometimes you don't need binder, but they can be watery and definitely not quick drying. And that, that's fine if you've got time and space to just put something and let it dry. But if you want to do something fast and you move around a lot, it's good to have your ink dry fast. So alcohol-based inks dry a lot faster because the alcohol evaporates much faster than water. And yeah, it's going to, by filtering it really fine, so this is quite chunky, there's a lot of sediment and a lot of particles in this ink, but you can put your ink through coffee filters or tea filters and get it really fine. And then fill it into reusable markers and pens and stuff. And if it's alcohol-based ink, then it will dry really fast and you'll be able to sketch people while you commute and then close your sketchbook and it won't get smudged, and you'll be able to start drawing and then push your hand across the page and you won't smudge your drawing. How cool is that? Oh, that's cool to hear. Otto, love that your accuracy has increased recently since you stopped doing pencil sketches. Cool, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and that was totally, that I just learned so much accuracy-wise. And that thing about conscious mark making, which is what's so awesome about working with ink. How long have I been working with ink? But I don't know, just a few years ago, I wouldn't have drawn this, I guess. I would have, you know, we all have our history and progression, but to just be able to, in a relaxed manner, just start drawing, which was also not always the case. Can be pretty stressful and have all these kind of ideas and dreams and intentions, and we want it to be awesome, and then just to start drawing something in a medium which is so permanent, and just go for it. Used to be quite a terrifying kind of idea for me, I think for a lot of people. But it's just such a good teacher. And Inktober is so awesome because it gets also gets a lot of people who maybe don't typically use ink to spend some time dabbling with ink. So it's just such a great opportunity to learn. Just, graphite is fun, but ink has just taught me so much. So thank you very much, Rebecca, back in the day, for telling me I need to start drawing in ink. Yeah, Stina. Yeah, that's something I've noticed a lot. When I use the calligraphy fountain pens, there's this crispness and something that I really enjoy, which is kind of missing in the stick pen stuff. And I love stick pens, but I also love that kind of crunchy crispness of the fountain pens, and that's part of the reason why I want to have some awesome natural ink that I can put in my fountain pens. So yeah, yes, thank you for mentioning that. And I think that's something that's going to make it kind of accessible and interesting for a lot of people as well, to be able to make your own ink and put it in the tools that you know and love. Because I guess there's a learning curve with the stick pen. I love it. What kind of a snake is that? Next question. I don't know, is Sam here? Sam said that they would watch, maybe silently in the background somewhere. I presume it's, hang on, a python, right? I don't know. Does anyone know anything about snakes? Yeah, it will. It'll be super interesting the way it dries. Oh, Peggy, so cool that you're here because you asked, and I was hoping you would be here so we could talk about this. Thank you for asking, Peggy. So I addressed it earlier, this thing that when your iron mix is a bit riper and more intense and darker. That helps to get it darker. But I would say, because I saw your work and it had this really lovely light grey colour, but you want it to be nice and dark. So evaporating the liquid more will help. So you could simmer it a bit. Sometimes, like this, I just leave my jars open and they evaporate. I have these kind of watermarks showing how much it's evaporated. But you can also just simmer it for a bit and reduce some of that liquid, and that will make it darker. And if the acorn inks, the acorns are so abundant, you can use so many of them, get so many, fill a pot with them, so that you really have a lot. And you can cook it up, let it cool down the next day, bring it to the boil again, leave it again. And I've made it in a day, but I've also spent a week making it. And the longer you let it steep, and the longer you cook it, the kind of richer and intenser the ink is going to be. And just reducing that water content is going to help a lot as well. So I hope that helps. And I look forward to seeing your further acorn ink experiments. And Stina, I think that question at Sktchy, that comes back to me because I've got a lot going on, and there are some things I need to do, I think, before they can efficiently get announced. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting because I have some pretty exciting ideas about the format, but I need to get that kind of sorted in the next couple of days. So hopefully you'll be hearing about it soon. Thank you for asking, Stina. We've got like 13 minutes left. I could keep playing with this snake pattern, but I was thinking it'd be really nice to fill in some really big dark areas here. Great, Peggy. I'm so happy that you were here because I saw the question and I thought it's a super important question, and I want you to have an amazing acorn ink experience. And this is the perfect way to address it. And now everyone's heard. So everyone who's here and everyone who's going to watch this. So I'm so glad that you came here and asked your question, Peggy. Yeah, I've got this synthetic watercolor brush, and I'm gonna fill in some nice inky chunkiness, and this is really thick. It's almost like acorn sediment paste. It's not even really ink anymore, the stuff in the bottom of this jar. Oh, it's so thick. And Peggy, I don't know if you were, how long you've been here, but I mentioned earlier that when your iron, hello Sheila, nice to have you here. If your iron mix that you're preparing is just a couple of weeks old, because I think the first time I ever made acorn ink, I just had my iron going for 2 weeks before and I had the 2 jars, and I would tip off the vinegar into another jar and let it breathe for a couple of days and tip the vinegar back in and do that back and forward. So the bits of iron could really oxidize, get nice and rusty. So I did that for like 2 weeks before I made my first batch of acorn ink. And I had this really nice dark brown sepia color. It was really dark. It was definitely not black and cold like this, but a really lovely dark brown color. And I think that my acorn ink is now so black, partly because I use a lot of acorns when I cook it, and my iron mix has been maturing for years, and I keep adding vinegar to the same rusty things that I found on the ground 5 or 6 years ago, and just keep using that. Bye-bye, Stina. Thank you for being here. Oh yeah, my next Inktober prompt will be coming up soon. Maybe it is already. Once we get off of here, we'll be like, oh wow, the next class is available. Cool. Thank you, Henry. I'm glad you enjoy the line work. And I think the tool makes such a difference. Once I started working with these broad edge pens, it was just like, oh, it's everything you learn over the years. You take all of that, and then you've got this tool that you haven't used so much before, or maybe I had tried and kind of left it, didn't really get into it. But yeah, when I started drawing with the calligraphy pen, it was just like, oh, I love the line variation with this. And I was practicing calligraphy for a couple of years, and just that, I think that helps, like the idea of you draw your line and you have these strokes with this intention of creating a letter, which is hopefully beautiful and readable, and then taking that calligraphic quality and translating it to portraiture and line work or whatever we choose to draw. I really enjoy the process, and it's something that I enjoy looking at. And there are so many amazing artists that have this kind of chunky, thick line work or brush work, and it's something that I really enjoy. So I'm glad that you enjoy it too. And I think you can still get really precise with drawing on the edge. And sometimes I'll do a whole portrait where I just keep it really fine. I'm drawing on the edge of the broad edge pen. I'm like, oh, I've hardly even used the broad side of it. So I enjoy the fineness of it as well. And then when you can just flatten out and pull a big thick line, oh, it's so much fun. Yes, it is. The ear sticking out. It's amazing. It's just so squished. It's so cool. I also just noticed that just before we started live streaming, before we started this together, I was like, look at that ear. I wish I had drawn it bigger, because it's such a lovely detail, that squished ear. It's so cool. Glad you noticed. It's such a super cool, fun detail. So anyone drawing along today, you can hashtag Inktober Portrait Challenge, hashtag ink naturally, even if you're not using natural ink. I am. And tag me. I'd love to see your work. And if anyone here saw my Instagram stories and has the Instagram name of Sam, it'd be great if you could put that in the chat, and then Sam will see your work. So that was, yeah, in my Instagram stories. I put more Fichte or something like that. And Henry, I really love the thing of mixing line quality stuff and like big chunky brushwork, or just filling in solid areas. I think the play of line work and brushwork can be really nice as well. Just going back to that. It's funny, I had a phase where I also just like almost exclusively was using flat brushes. But this is nice, it just holds so much ink. You can get pretty fine with it. So I was kind of wondering earlier if I would kind of do some brushwork into the shadow side of the face, but I think I'm going to leave it. Exactly, Henry. And the thing when you, if you're using a fountain pen, you need to put some pressure on the pen so that the tines split, and then the ink starts to flow. And once it's flowing, then you like turn on the side, and then you can just get ultra thin lines. But the thing of using a metal nib is the tines need to be split. The cool thing with these stick pens is you can just go straight to using the corner of the pen. But yeah, it has a similar effect. So we've got like 4 minutes. Maybe I can finish this snake pattern. And then I feel like this has been a really fun portrait session with all of you. I don't know, for the people who are here regularly, I don't know if you can all tell, but sometimes I have, sometimes I feel gooder about my results during the live streams than other times. And it's, for me, I think it's just super good gauge to see, how am I on track. And I think for all of us, each time we do a portrait or whatever we do, to be like, okay, what did I like and what did I not like about what I just did? It doesn't have to be artwork. This could be good for life in general. And if you can kind of nail down or start to get a feel, because sometimes it can be so hard. It can be so hard to recognize, wow, why am I frustrated about this artwork that I just made? And I imagine most of you probably know the feeling as well, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, yes, that's so cool. And sometimes it's frustrating, and sometimes you have like an aha moment. And the more you start to recognize what it is that's giving you that sense of satisfaction, dissatisfaction, you start recognizing it and being able to kind of put a name to it, or saying, oh, that thing, I did that thing again and I don't like it, or that was really cool. Whatever it is, that's such a good teacher. And just to tune into that and take it into your next piece and the next piece and whatever it is you choose to do in life. And I think it really helps to improve my work when I can see what are the things that I like about the way I'm working. And I just think it's, apart from the actual drawing itself, it's just such good, like, apart from focusing on technique, it's so good to recognize what it is you like and dislike about your own work. Where do you see your growth happening, or the style question? As I mentioned earlier, my illustration work is something most people would find unrecognizable, and I've played around with lots of different styles and techniques and mediums, and just draw a lot and see what you feel good about, or what flows, or maybe the tools you start choosing to use, how they can influence your workflow. And there's so many fun things to kind of notice along the way on the journey of art making. I don't know if I was just kind of rambling with that, or if that was a cohesive train of thought and expression of it. but it filled up the rest of the time. So thank you very much for being here and for drawing Sam and the snake with me. I feel good about this drawing session. This was fun. So thank you so much to all of you for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up if you liked anything that you've seen or heard today, and come back next time. And come draw with me live on Tuesday. We can see each other face to face and do quick portrait sketches, which is always lots of fun. And it's lovely seeing some of you Tuesday sketches here today. That's always in my Instagram stories. Come draw together live, so that we can all see each other. I love having you here, looking at me and what I'm doing, but it's just so cool to sit and talk real time. That's my social life at the moment, mainly apart from family life. Happens on Tuesdays, and that's so wonderful to share it with you. All right, done. I hope you've all had fun. You're welcome. Fergie, Steph, Polly, and Diane. Yeah, so cool to have you here, Steph. Steph's one of the Tuesday drawing session sketches, and yeah, super fun. And thank you for everyone who's been here, everyone in the chat, everyone who didn't say anything in the chat. Thank you very much, Sam and Snake, for being our muses today. Thank you for the acorns, for making this luscious dark ink. And yeah, I'd love to see all of your natural ink experiments. So great that you were here and were able to ask about your ink, Peggy. So yeah, tag me in your posts. I'd love to see your work. Hashtag Ink Naturally, Inktober Portrait Challenge, at Dylan Sara. Bye-bye. Be kind, have fun, create, and love.